So I was in the middle of pressing up a board, had it all up in the press, and I tightened down this right side, and then when I was finishing and tightening up this left side, suddenly I blew out the ends of 3 of these brackets that hold the bottom of the jack. And this one's taken off so I can take measurements from it. This whole A-frame was just out of the picture at that point. And so the whole thing was just being held up by this one A-frame, which was enough to press up this side of the board, but this other side was basically unsupported. So I had to come up with a way to fix it, to try to salvage my board as fast as I could. So I ended up re-drilling just the holes a little further down, and trying to fix it, and it worked mostly. I knew these brackets were gonna break eventually, but I didn't expect it to break so soon or so suddenly. So I'm gonna be replacing all these brackets with something else. So until I do that, the press is a little bit out of commission. But I did get a board of the press, so we're going to take a look at it and some of the other boards I've gotten out of the press so far. Okay, so this is the most recent board to come out of the press. And this is actually the board that I had in the press when the A-frame blew out. And so unfortunately that caused a few problems in the layup. It was probably around 40 minutes between the time I had started gluing up and the time that I had the press fixed. So it was a little problematic. And you can see right up here, I've got a little bubble right there and one right up there. But that's not a very big deal. In fact, I've had problems on all the other boards I've pressed up, which are all right here in a pile. But actually, every single one of them, even the very first one, has had a perfect top sheet. So the fact that the problem is on the top sheet on this board really tells me that it was a problem with the press failing during the pressing of this board. So I'm pretty confident that I've got it dialed by now. Anyway, but the point of showing you this was to show you the shape of the board, which is why I've got a grid line drawn on it. So I drew the grid before pressing up the board, so that as I press it up, it would deform the lines. So let's see. You can see it's got concave on there, as a good board should. If we put a straight edge across it, you can see that. Move to a little bit better spot. There we go. So yeah, so each one of these squares should be approximately 1 inch. You can see with the shape of the concave between this line right here and this line right here, it's practically completely flat. There is a bit of a transition that's happening between the second and third lines. A little bit of progressive concave here, but from the first and second lines, it's essentially just straight edge concave. If you look carefully, also, right down here, you can see this really subtle dome going on. And the idea here is this is just like bare minimum W concave just in this area. So basically, if you want to build up W concave with duct tape or grip tape or whatever, you've kind of got something to go on already, but it's not enough to interfere with anything if you don't. I really like that. I think it's actually, I really like it. Up here, let's see. If you look, you can see it's got this curve that comes out. This transition doesn't just cut straight across, like you see on a lot of boards. It actually wraps around And so if I grab my foot here, sorry, I don't have a robot foot. But so the idea is you put your foot down, you can kind of curl your foot around, and it's just really comfortable to help you move around on the deck a lot and know where your foot is and keep it in a locked in position in more positions. So that's what that's about. Up here at the end, you can see, there we go. It's got quite, so rotate it. It's got quite a turn up for the tail. If we look at it from this way again, you can see, let's stand this up a little more. Okay, you can see it's even got a pretty good bowl going on in there. Yeah, it looks like it's about 1/8 of an inch. It's got a lot happening right in here, and that is undoubtedly one of the contributing factors to this developing problems. One of the things we have going on, well, I haven't even looked at the nose yet. We'll get there. So here's a look at the board from the side. So up here, this is the nose. This is the front track platform right here. This is the rear truck platform right here, and this is the tail right there. So, and then this whole section across here, you might notice is not flat. It's got a cambered center. And that does two things. Well, it does a couple things. One thing it does is it raises the center up a little so it's got a little bit better clearance. But that's just a nice perk. The real thing it does is it actually is designed so that this whole front area, if I lift up the back here, this whole front area is completely flat all the way back to right there. So so the idea is with that is that when you're pushing and you have your foot on here, your foot is in a completely flat position, which gives you, we found that the flatter the foot platform when you're trying to push, the better you can control your board. That was the conclusion of our comparison of about 15 different boards. But the thing about it that's special is not only is it flat, because of the camber in the center, it's actually pitched forwards by around, well, I think around 2 degrees. So what that does is it moves your knee forward and puts more of your weight on your toes, which helps you to even have better control over what you're doing. So that's what's going on there. You can see here you can really clearly see the shape of the transition. It's not a straight across line like most transitions. It's I forget the term people have used, and I forget the term I used to use, but it's not a linear. The transition doesn't happen straight across the board. And again, the purpose of this is so that you can stand up on the transition and maneuver your feet and rotate them on the transition. And that also brings up another point about what makes the transitions on this board different. You can see how mellow the transition is. I've put the straight edge on there. I mean, the radiuses on this thing are really big. So on a lot of boards, most drop boards, they try to create the transition radiuses as tight as possible. And so instead of having, so imagine that's a transition right there. It's a really tight radius, and you put your foot right up against the transition like that. That's not what we do with this board. What we do is you have your foot up on the transition. And what it helps you do is it helps you get your foot even closer to the truck. And it makes a much better pocket, I think. I mean, a good pocket isn't just a straight line. It's kind of sunk down. Anyway, it's a really great shape. That's the nose again. Let's see if we can get a good look at the tail and see it. So the this drop in the rear is actually around 3/4 of an inch, and the drop in the front is around just 1/4 of an inch. So there's about 1/2 an inch difference between the rear and the front. And what that means is that the deck is actually going to be pitched back like that when it's going down the hill. Well, I guess, yeah, anyway. So what that does is, because it's pitched back, it makes it a lot easier to put more weight on the rear when going through turns and carving up. And, you know, and that helps you maintain grip, and so you don't slide and lose control of the rear. But the board is also a little short. It's a shorter board, especially for a drop deck. And so that also means it's easy to transition. Being short makes it easy to transition your weight from one extreme to the other. So it's also easy to put weight on the front when you need stability and speed. When you need stability for speed. So I believe that's a summary of everything about the shape. So a couple other things. I took measurements comparing the shape that I'm getting out of these boards compared to the shape I was getting out of the wooden mold with just pressing it up with clamps. And because the current board I'm riding was actually, it's the same mold just before I made it out of concrete, and when I was just pressing it up with wood. And I'm very happy to say that even though I'm not getting all of the shape out of this press, I am getting more concave, more bowl, and crisper transitions than I was out of the wooden press. However, oddly enough, this rocker I've got pressed into it. There we go, it was upside down. This rocker I've got pressed into it, it's actually about 1/16 of an inch lower than on the wooden boards. So I found that a little confusing, but overall I am getting more shape than I got out of the wooden press, and that is delightful. Hopefully we'll get some boards cut out, and then we'll ride some of them. And there we go. It'll be fun. Longboard technology, over and out.